Tonight, I'd like to tell you a quiet story. It begins in a house that no longer belongs to the present. A house with pale blue shutters and a wide wooden porch that sighs gently in the evening air. So before we begin, let your shoulders soften. Let the day drift a little further away. There's nothing you need to do right now. Nowhere you need to be. Just listen and breathe slowly. The house had stood at the end of Maple Street for nearly 70 years. It wasn't large, it wasn't grand, but it carried the kind of silence that only time can build. Eleanor hadn't stepped inside it for almost a decade. Not since her father's hands had grown too weak to turn the brass doorknob on his own. Not since the hospital room with its steady humming machines. Tonight, though, she was back. The key felt unfamiliar in her fingers, cool, slightly heavier than she remembered. When the door opened, the air inside greeted her with the scent of old wood, dust, and something faintly sweet, like faded lavender. She stepped in slowly, closing the door behind her. The house answered with a soft creak, as if clearing its throat. It was late summer, the kind of August evening where the light lingers longer than expected. Golden, gentle, unhurried. Eleanor set her purse down on the small hallway table. The wallpaper hadn't changed, tiny blue flowers repeating endlessly across the walls. She reached out and touched it. The paper felt thinner now. Time does that. It softens everything, even memory. She hadn't come to stay long, just a few days, just long enough to sort through what remained. Clothes in cedar chests, dishes wrapped in newspaper, boxes stacked carefully in the attic. Her father had always kept things. Receipts from hardware stores in 1974. Birthday cards tied with ribbon. Old instruction manuals for radios long gone. He believed everything deserved a place, she used to say. And perhaps that was why the attic felt important. The stairs to the attic were narrow, steeper than she remembered. She carried a small lamp with her, the cord trailing behind like a quiet companion. Each step gave a low wooden groan, not in protest, but in recognition. At the top, she paused. The attic door was lighter than the others in the house. Painted white once, now faded to something softer. She turned the handle and pushed. The air inside was warmer, still. Dust floated lazily in the beam of the lamp, like tiny drifting stars. There were boxes everywhere, neatly labeled in her father's careful handwriting. Winter blankets, tax records, Christmas lights, Eleanor's school. She smiled at that last one. It had been decades since she'd thought about her third-grade spelling bee trophy. She set the lamp down on a wooden trunk and knelt beside a smaller box near the far wall. This one had no label, just a thin layer of dust, undisturbed. When she lifted the lid, the hinges made the faintest sound. Inside were letters, dozens of them, tied together with a narrow piece of twine. The envelopes had yellowed with age. Some were unopened, some carefully resealed. Her fingers hovered for a moment. There's something sacred about unopened letters. They hold a version of the past that hasn't yet been disturbed. Slowly, she lifted the bundle. The twine slipped free easily, and one envelope fell gently into her lap. It was addressed in handwriting she knew instantly, firm, steady, measured, her father's. But the name written beneath it was not her mother's. Eleanor felt a quiet shift in the air around her. Not fear, not quite surprise, just curiosity. The envelope was dated July 18th, 1968, a year before her parents were married, before the small house on Maple Street, before she had ever existed. She turned it over. The seal had never been broken. The paper was thin now, fragile at the corners. For a moment, she considered placing it back into the box. Some things, once opened, cannot be returned to the way they were. But the attic was silent, patient, and the past, it seemed, was waiting. Very carefully, she slid her finger beneath the edge of the envelope. The paper parted with a soft sigh. Inside was a single folded sheet. She unfolded it slowly. The ink had faded slightly, but the words were still clear. And as the late summer light filtered through the attic window, Eleanor began to read. July 18th, 1968. Somewhere far from Maple Street. My dearest Margaret, I'm not sure if this letter will ever find its way into your hands. I've started it 3 times already. Each time, the words felt too small for what I wanted to say. But tonight is quiet, quieter than most evenings here. And when it's quiet like this, my thoughts travel home. They travel down Maple Street. They settle on that little white house with the wide porch. And they find you. I imagine you sitting on the porch steps just before sunset, your hair catching that last bit of golden light. The cicadas beginning their evening chorus, Mrs. Peterson's screen door slamming down the road, Mr. Callahan watering his lawn even though it doesn't need watering, the whole town moving slowly, like it always has. I didn't realize how much I loved that slowness until I left it behind. Out here, time moves differently. It stretches in strange directions. Some days feel endless. Others disappear before you can hold on to them. But every night, when the sky turns that deep shade of blue, I think of home, and I think of you. Do you remember the first summer we painted your father's fence? We weren't very good at it. We left streaks everywhere. White paint on my boots, on your cheek, on the tip of your nose. You pretended to be angry, but you were laughing too hard to keep it up. I can still hear that laugh. It was the kind that made other people turn and smile without knowing why. I carried that sound with me. It's funny the things a man holds on to. Not grand speeches, not big promises, just small, ordinary moments. The way your hand felt in mine when we crossed the street. The way you folded napkins at the diner when you were nervous. The way you said my name when you wanted me to listen closely. Margaret. There are things I don't know how to say properly, and perhaps that's why I haven't sent this letter yet. Before I left, I told you I would come back the same man. I said it confidently, like I understood what that meant. But the truth is, I don't know who I'll be when I return. Some nights I feel steady and certain. Other nights I feel like a stranger inside my own thoughts. And I wonder if you would recognize the look in my eyes. I don't want to bring you something heavy. I don't want my silence to sit at your kitchen table like an uninvited guest. You deserve laughter. You deserve light. You deserve the simple life we once talked about. The small house, the garden in the back, maybe a dog that refuses to listen, children running through sprinklers in the yard. I've held on to that picture more tightly than you know. Yesterday, one of the fellows here received a package from home. His mother had baked cookies. They were crushed by the time they arrived, but he didn't seem to mind. He passed them around like they were something sacred. For a moment, we were all just boys again, standing in kitchens, listening to radios hum softly in the background, waiting for supper. I closed my eyes and imagined your apple pie cooling on the windowsill, the way you'd brush flour off your hands before reaching for mine. It's strange how memory can feed a man, sometimes more than food ever could. The nights are the hardest, not because of noise, but because of the quiet that follows. When everything settles, the mind begins to wander. And mine always wanders back to Maple Street, to the porch swing that creaks just slightly to the left, to the oak tree that leans toward the road as if it's curious about passers-by, to you, always to you. I keep your photograph in my jacket pocket. It's bent at the corners now, soft from being unfolded too many times. You're standing by the river in that picture, wearing the blue dress with the tiny white flowers. Your smile is small, almost shy, as if you weren't sure someone should be looking at you that way. I look at it more than I probably should. It reminds me of who I was before I boarded that bus. It reminds me of who I hope to be again. Margaret, if I am being honest, there is fear in me, not the loud kind, not the kind that makes a man run, but the quiet kind, the kind that asks questions when no one else is listening. What if time changes us in different ways? What if the distance stretches further than miles? What if the man who returns is not the one you remember painting fences in the summer sun? I suppose every man who leaves wonders the same thing, but I cannot pretend the thought doesn't visit me. Still, hope visits too. Hope is stubborn. It sits beside me even when I try to ignore it. It whispers about mornings on that porch, about coffee shared in silence, about growing older not with regret, but with gratitude. If this letter reaches you, I want you to know something clearly. Loving you has been the simplest and truest thing in my life. Out here, where so much feels uncertain, that truth remains steady. It doesn't shift. It doesn't waver. It waits patiently for the day I can walk back down Maple Street and see you standing there. Perhaps I won't send this. Perhaps I'll fold it carefully and keep it tucked away. Not because I doubt you, but because I'm not certain I've earned the life we once imagined. That's a heavy thing to admit, heavier than I expected. But you have always deserved honesty from me, even if that honesty never leaves this page. The sun will rise soon. I can feel the air beginning to change. A morning has a different kind of stillness. If you're reading this, then somehow I found the courage to let these words travel home. If you're not, then at least they were written. And sometimes that is enough. Take care of yourself, Margaret. Sit on the porch for both of us. Watch the fireflies when they appear, and know that somewhere under this wide, uncertain sky, there is a man who carries your name gently in his heart. Always, Thomas. The attic was very still, so still that Eleanor could hear the faint ticking of her father's old wristwatch somewhere in the box beside her. Thomas. She whispered the name once, softly, as if the air itself might answer. Thomas. She hadn't heard anyone call her father that in years. To her, he had always been Dad, or sometimes, when she was older, simply Father. Thomas was a name from before her, from before Maple Street belonged to memory, from before she had a place in his life. She lowered the letter slowly into her lap. Her hands were steady, but something inside her had shifted, not broken, just rearranged. All her life she had known her father as a quiet man, dependable, measured, a man who fixed loose hinges before they squeaked too loudly, a man who folded the newspaper neatly after reading it, a man who rarely spoke about the past and never about the war. If she had asked, he would have smiled gently and said, "That was a long time ago, Ellie." As if time alone could explain everything. She had never imagined him sitting somewhere far from home, writing by dim light, holding fear in one hand and hope in the other. She had never imagined him doubting whether he deserved happiness, or wondering if he would come back changed. To her, he had always seemed certain, solid, like the oak tree in the front yard, roots deep, branches steady. But now, she could see the younger man beneath that steadiness, a man unsure of himself, a man afraid of bringing heaviness home, a man who loved deeply enough to question whether love was enough. Eleanor felt a warmth rise behind her eyes, not sharp grief, not quite sorrow, something softer, understanding perhaps. She thought of the evenings when her father had sat quietly on the porch, watching the sun slip behind the houses, hands folded loosely in his lap. She used to think he was simply tired. Now she wondered what memories had been sitting beside him, what thoughts had followed him home all those years ago, what parts of himself he had kept carefully tucked away, like this letter, unsent but never discarded. Her gaze drifted to the signature again. Always, Thomas, always. The word felt different now. It wasn't just a closing. It was a promise he had kept in his own quiet way. He had come home. He had built the small house. He had planted the garden. There had been a dog once, stubborn and loud. There had been laughter at the kitchen table. There had been birthdays, Christmas mornings, sprinklers in the yard. He had not believed he'd earned that life. And yet, he had lived it fully, gently, without fanfare. Eleanor folded the letter carefully along its original creases. She ran her fingers over the paper as if smoothing time itself. For a brief moment, she wished she could speak to him, not as a daughter to a father, but as one adult to another. She would tell him this: "You were enough. You were always enough." The quiet in you did not make you distant. It made you thoughtful. The heaviness you feared bringing home, you carried it so lightly that we hardly noticed, and the love you doubted, it shaped every corner of our lives. A soft breeze slipped through the attic window, just enough to stir the dust in the lamplight. Eleanor closed her eyes. She imagined her father at 23, ink on his fingers, uncertain, hoping. She imagined him folding this very letter, hesitating, choosing silence, perhaps thinking he would protect Margaret from his doubts by keeping them hidden. Life had unfolded anyway. They had married. They had danced in the living room when no one was watching. They had grown older, side by side. Whatever fear had lived in him that summer of 1968, it had not stopped him from loving. Eleanor placed the letter back inside the envelope, but she did not reseal it. Some things, once opened, are meant to breathe. She looked around the attic again. The boxes, the careful handwriting, the life catalogued in quiet order. Her father had believed everything deserved a place. Perhaps this letter had finally found its own. Not hidden, not forgotten, but understood. She rose slowly, brushing dust from her knees. The house seemed different now, not larger, not smaller, just fuller, as if a missing piece had slipped gently into place. Before turning off the lamp, she held the letter to her chest for a brief moment, not in sorrow, but in gratitude. For the young man named Thomas, for the father she had known, and for the simple, steady love that had bridged the distance between them. Downstairs, the porch boards would still creak. The cicadas would still hum in the warm August air, and somewhere in memory and in heart, Thomas would always sit in the fading light, certain of one thing at last: he had been enough. Eleanor turned off the attic lamp. For a moment, the space was wrapped in gentle shadow. Only a thin ribbon of evening light slipped through the small window. Dust still drifted softly in the air, unhurried, settling where it always had. She carried the letter carefully down the narrow stairs. Each step answered with a familiar wooden murmur. Not loud, not sharp, just the quiet voice of an old house remembering its own weight. Downstairs, the living room waited exactly as she had left it. The armchair near the window, the small side table with its faint water ring from years ago, the clock above the doorway ticking in patient rhythm. Tick, pause, tick, pause. Time moving forward, the only way it knows how. Steady, unconcerned, gentle. She placed the letter on the dining table and stood there for a while. The sky outside had softened into a dusky blue. Streetlights flickered on one by one along Maple Street. A car passed slowly, then quiet again. Eleanor opened the front door and stepped onto the porch. The boards gave their familiar creak beneath her feet. The air was warm but not heavy. Fireflies had begun to appear near the oak tree, small golden pulses in the growing dark. On this very porch her father had once sat in silence, hands folded loosely, eyes tracing the horizon as if reading something written there. She lowered herself into the old porch swing. It swayed gently at the slightest shift of her weight. Back and forth, a rhythm as old as the house itself. She imagined him beside her now, not as the man she had known in his later years, but as Thomas, 23, uncertain, holding a letter he was not sure he would send. She wished she could tell him something simple, something that would have eased the quiet fears he carried. she would tell him this: "The life you build will be enough. The love you give will be felt. The doubts you keep hidden will not undo you. They will simply make you gentler. And gentleness, in the end, is stronger than we think." The swing continued its slow arc. The cicadas hummed in steady chorus. Somewhere down the street, a screen door closed softly. Ordinary sounds, the kind that stitch evenings together. Eleanor let her breathing match the movement of the swing, in and out, slowly. There was no rush now, no task waiting upstairs, no urgency left in the day. Only this porch, this sky, this quiet understanding. After a while, she brought the letter with her to the swing. She unfolded it once more, not to reread every word, but to feel its presence. Paper that had crossed decades, ink that had held a young man's uncertainty. She rested it gently in her lap, and for the first time since returning to the house, she felt something settle inside her. Not excitement, not sorrow, just a calm recognition. Her father had once been afraid, and yet he had come home. He had chosen love anyway. The night deepened. The air cooled slightly. Stars began to appear above the rooftops. Eleanor thought about all the unspoken things that move quietly through families. The worries never voiced, the letters never mailed, the apologies never required. Love does not always arrive in grand declarations. Sometimes it arrives in small, steady acts, in fences painted on warm afternoons, in porch lights left on a little longer than necessary, in hands that fix what is broken without being asked. Her father had loved in that way, quietly, faithfully, without needing recognition. When she finally rose from the swing, it was not out of sadness. It was simply time. The house behind her glowed softly in the porch light. For years, she had thought of it as a place filled with endings. Tonight, it felt like something else. A place of continuity. A place where the past had not disappeared, only softened. She stepped back inside and closed the door gently. The latch clicked into place with a sound both small and certain. Upstairs, she placed the letter inside the top drawer of the hallway table. Not hidden, not displayed, just resting, exactly where it belonged. Some stories do not need to be shared with the world. They simply need to be understood by the one who finds them. Eleanor turned off the lights one by one. The kitchen, the hallway, the living room. Each switch dimmed another corner of the house, until only the soft glow from her bedside lamp remained. She lay down beneath the familiar quilt. The fabric carried the faint scent of cedar and summer air. Outside, Amanin, the cicadas continued their steady song. Not loud, not demanding, just constant. She closed her eyes and pictured Maple Street years from now. Different cars in the driveways, different voices in the yards, but the porch still standing, the oak tree still leaning gently toward the road. And somewhere in the quiet of evening, a man named Thomas sitting peacefully in memory, no longer uncertain, no longer afraid, simply part of the story that shaped everything after him. If you are listening now, let your own thoughts grow softer, like dust settling in lamplight, like a porch swing slowing to stillness. There is nothing unfinished tonight, nothing you must solve before sleep. The past has found its place, the present is steady beneath you, and tomorrow will arrive in its own time. For now, let the house grow quiet, let the stars rest above you. Let the steady rhythm of memory and breath carry you gently forward. And if there is a letter in your own heart, words once written or never spoken, know that love has a way of reaching where it is meant to go. Even if it takes years, even if it arrives quietly. Sleep now. The porch light is on. The house is safe, and the night is kind. Thank you for spending this time here. Thank you for listening. And thank you for letting this story be part of your evening. Now, rest well. The porch light is still on, and another story will be waiting for you soon.